Hi, my name is Dr. Rob Moorcroft and I'm a Principal Consultant at Tunley Environmental. Recently, I led the Port of Detroit's Decarbonisation and Air Quality Improvement project, which is a big project for us as a company and had really wide-reaching impact. At the Port of Detroit, we measured the baseline emissions, and as a result of which, they won a $24.9 million grant for electrification and further study. This puts them en route for their target of net zero by 2040. Previously, I did my PhD at the University of Manchester in marine coatings. Then I moved on to be a scientist at a startup just outside Cambridge. And for the last 2.5 years, I've been at Tunley Environmental.
And I am Dr. Aaron Yeardley. I am a science team co-lead at Tunley Environmental. So from a young age, I've enjoyed maths, always enjoyed maths at school, GCSEs, A-levels. Went on to uni to do my masters in chemical engineering because I always wanted to do maths for a specific reason. I wanted to do maths and actually get some results out of it, not just doing maths as a school topic. So I've always wanted to do something to help the world. From my masters, from my undergraduate, doing chemical engineering, I went on to do a PhD, still within chemical engineering, but doing machine learning and helping everybody else within the department on their chemical engineering topics by using AI to speed things up and analyse a lot of data. Analysing data became a big thing, which I really enjoy. Always wanted to do something to help the world. So from doing my PhD, I moved on to more environmental work, working with Tunley Environmental, taking large data sets and helping companies reduce their emissions and become more environmental. As the science team co-lead at Tunley Environmental, over the past 3 years I've worked on many different projects. In particular, helping companies reduce their carbon emissions and decarbonise. One in particular project I really enjoy working on, we're the largest infrastructure project in the UK right now, which is the HS2, doing a whole life cycle carbon assessment and reducing the carbon emissions for the HS2 project, helping suppliers make sure they hit the target set by HS2 and reduce emissions by 50%.
So with net zero targets looming and businesses not quite sure what they need to do to get hold of their emissions, is it realistic for businesses to go net zero? And what can they do to measure, track and reduce their carbon footprint?
Well, it's certainly going to be difficult, but just making a start will make a huge difference. I mean, we've got to understand the reasoning for it first. You know, climate change, it's happening now, and the reasons why it's happening is because of greenhouse gas emissions.
So what are the impacts of climate change? Why should businesses, why should we as a society care about it?
I think the main thing to understand is that they're not local impacts. So just because a business in the UK, you know, if they're releasing emissions, it's not just going to impact the area around the UK. It's a climate impact, it's global. So releasing the emissions will heat up the earth. Temperatures will get hotter, ice caps will melt, and sea levels will rise. It'll create extreme weathers, and it'll just be a challenging world.
Yeah, I mean, we share one atmosphere.
Yeah.
We know that's our atmosphere that we all share. So with net zero targets looming and businesses trying to get a hold of it, and it seeming like an impossible task, what can businesses actually do to kind of get a hold of the issue and measure their emissions and do something about it?
Well, there's lots they can do, and as long as they make a start, that's the main thing. And the reason why they've got to make a start is because of the impacts that are occurring in the world right now. So greenhouse gases, the abundance of them in the atmosphere, it's ever increasing. The impact what humans are having since the Industrial Revolution has massively increased. And greenhouse gases, you know, they're like carbon dioxide, methane, CFCs, all of them, even water itself, vapour. What they do is they're a greenhouse gas for a molecule of a certain size, they absorb the radiation and then it gets expelled back into the earth. So the radiation's coming in from the sun, coming back out, hitting the gases and getting trapped in like a greenhouse. And that is heating up the earth. It's having really bad impacts. It's, you know, heating up, melting the ice caps, causing extreme weather circumstances, and this is going to have much more of a severe impact in the future. So Rob, net zero sounds like a difficult task. Do you think it's truly out of reach, and what can businesses do to actually become net zero?
Well, obviously the first step is to understand where the company is at. So the first thing is to measure your carbon footprint. Where are your emissions? What sources are they coming from? And understand what you can realistically do to get down to net zero for whatever target you set. So in that, the first thing that you need to do is set out your boundary of emissions. So what are you going to measure? And that will be different for different businesses as they have different roles to play in the supply chain or delivering something to a customer. So businesses have to cover all of their scopes 1 and 2, and then some of scope 3, depending on if that's upstream and in another company's boundary or downstream in another company's boundary. But you need to figure out what you're going to look at. That's step 1. But with knowledge comes power. So once you understand what you're looking at, then you can have a think about how are we going to reduce these emissions? What technologies are out there? How much does it cost? How can we implement this? So once you've considered all your options, seeing what's financially feasible, seeing if all your staff have that buy-in and if they're on board, then you can kind of map out your way to net zero. What does that look like for your business? And then you can map out your pathway, set targets, and then get going and reduce your footprint.
So Rob, it's just like calorie counting, essentially. So to lose weight or to put on muscle, that sort of thing, in the industry, a lot of people now counting calories. They understand what they're eating first, how much exercise they're doing, try and balance them out. That's maybe like becoming carbon neutral, where you're balancing your calories with the exercise what you're doing. Or if you want to reduce your emissions, reduce your calories you're eating, lose weight, you count your calories and reduce how much you're eating. Is it similar to that?
Yeah, in some ways, yeah. Because you need to understand where you're at first before you then know where you need to go. So that's like measuring your footprint, and then you can think about how you go from there. So if the first thing companies need to do is measure their carbon footprint, how do they go about it? What are the categories?
So companies, first of all, need to understand their reporting boundaries. So what is their business? What's involved in their business? How have they got any subsidiaries? They've got how many facilities? So get a good picture of that reporting boundary. Draw a circle around your business and put in what is in it, what activities you do, what facilities you've got, what company cars. Don't start thinking about emissions first thing. Start thinking about your business activities, your facilities, that sort of thing. Once you've done that, then you can look at the standards and actually start thinking about your reporting scopes. Ideally, we want every business to scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3. These are 3 different scopes which have a big influence on what companies measure. As
a high level overview, just brief, what are scopes 1, 2 and 3? What are those main categories?
Yeah, so scope 1 is your direct emissions. They are the emissions what you can see, what are directly from your business, from burning fossil fuels, releasing refrigerants, anything where there's that direct release of emissions from your company, from your business activities. Whereas scope 2 is indirect from energy. So that the emissions are produced from somebody else, like the power plant, but it's for your direct use of that energy, of that electricity, of that heat and steam, that energy what you directly use. Whereas scope 3 emissions is everything else from your supply chain. And the reason why scope 3 is so important is because it helps reduce the emissions worldwide, because you're then pushing your supply chain, both downstream and upstream, to reduce their emissions. So it means that then everybody's working together.
Yeah, I guess if you buy something like a steel pan, then scope 3 would be the emissions, the embodied carbon of that material. So then scope 3, you're kind of pushing that carbon reduction out to different businesses.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
And ideally, like we say, if every company reduces their scope 1 and 2 emissions, then as a worldwide, globally, we'll all be net zero. But some companies need that push, and they'll get that from the scope 3.
Yeah. But we were chatting earlier about the term net zero, and you said it had to be all of scope 3. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
It has to be every single category, has to be all of your emissions. Don't get me wrong, you don't have to reduce them all to zero. You reduce them as much as you feasibly can and then offset the residual emissions. But to actually say that you're net zero, you've got to calculate all of your emissions.
Yeah.
That's all, direct, indirect, everything.